Yeah. Well,
Okay.
can I say something first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I asked you about the recording. You said we are going to do something about it. The recording, still, I don't get it. If they don't say recording, how can somebody do assignment?
Okay, the recordings you mean for this session or for this unit, or is it some other unit that you're
In all the
mentioning?
units, the only recording I have, which is on Moodle, that I see on Moodle, it's only the IT, the only two recording. The rest, there is none.
Okay, so I'll catch up again with them. I'll follow this up. Yeah. I've mentioned it to them. I'll I'll just remind them again. Is
In
that okay?
fact, this is the only institute I see that you call, they don't respond. You put a message, they don't respond. Where I did my the other classes, it was even better. I don't know. I'm even regretting even registering on this one. On how am I going to pass my access to nursing if I don't have all those things?
That's okay. I'll speak to them and they'll get back to you. Yeah, is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So okay, so we'll start this session. It's the assignment brief on yeah, what's expected from you regarding your whichever sessions we've covered. It's basically based on that. So the assignment brief, there's an assignment brief that you have for, which will be up to 2,000 word long. And the first part is the first learning objective that you'll have to cover is to list two examples of any current legislation
Yeah.
and or policy guidelines. So it could be legislation and policy, or it could be just legislation
Mm.
or policy guidelines. And you'll have to briefly describe how these contribute to healthcare provision.
Okay.
So yeah, so description will be obviously something that is uh, something that is, you have to describe something, so you have to go a bit in depth, but then it's done very briefly, so it's not a very long thing that you have to do.
Yeah.
So any current legislation that you're aware of, policy guidelines that could add to your the strength of your document
Yeah.
within your workplace, and briefly you will have to describe how these contribute to healthcare provision. It could be anything that you're talking about. So just two examples of it. And I would recommend that whenever you're doing your assignment brief, just put this document on it, so the reader or the assessor knows that you're referring to this. And again, please make sure that you're using referencing. So Harvard referencing, the referencing list, you will have to do that work also. So you'll have a reference list at the end of the document,
Yeah.
on the Word document, and as well as in the text. So in between text, wherever there is something that you've used from somewhere else, you'll have to reference that also.
Okay.
And then part B is consider the values necessary for healthcare practice and describe how reflective practice contributes to the development of these for the healthcare professionals. So reflective practice, if you recall, what reflective practice did we do together?
Yeah.
Can you recall? It was Kolb's learning cycle, if you recall.
Mm.
So yeah, so some values that are necessary for healthcare practice. So we talked about values, we talked about ethics, we talked about confidentiality, we talked about skills that you need to know. So those values are necessary for healthcare practice. So you'll have to describe how, when you reflect on, you have your reflective practice into play. So you're reflecting on whatever's happened, whatever incident has happened, how that would contribute to the development of the healthcare professional. So how is it going to strengthen your practice? This when you reflect on something that's gone well, or something that's not gone well.
Okay.
Okay. So the next one is, so this is your next bit. So in this is more entangling of like, this is making it your assessment, making it the assessment clearer. So in this, you should be able to understand the policy context. So when you're talking about policy, you're talking about guidelines, you should be able to understand the policy context of healthcare services.
Yeah.
So when we assess you, you should be able to identify legislation, policy, guidelines impacting healthcare delivery, any policies, any legislations. So the word count would be 2000. Describe the impact of key requirements. We've talked about the key requirements. Okay. And then the second part is the second learning objective that I've just discussed. So you're understanding the requirements that are necessary for working as a healthcare professional.
Yeah.
So identify 2 of the requirements. So we've asked only 2 of the requirements that are necessary for a healthcare professional. So you could talk about terms, attitudes, values, skills, knowledge, ethics, and you'll have to compare and contrast the merits of each. We've talked about this also in our lectures. And then you'll have to describe the importance of reflective practice. So if you break these 2 tasks in this way, it's going to be easier for you. So you're describing the importance of reflective practice for healthcare professionals.
Okay.
And yeah, how that improves your practice. And then, yeah, just a minute. I'll just stop sharing just a minute. So yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions on this? Yeah, that's not going to take too much time of yours, I'm hoping. And
am I gonna get the
recordings for this?
Yeah, and the assignment briefing, right?
Yes, I'll ask them again. I'll just put this back on just a minute. Yeah. So that's there for you. So there's just this assignment brief that you have to cover up. So it's a 2000 word document, and there are 2 learning objectives that you have to cover.
Yeah, 2000 words in total, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But I do confuse the words. If I want to count them, how am I going to count them?
Okay, so what I do is, if I can just give you an example, I'll just share this document with you again. So here, yeah. So now if let's say this is my document that I've worked on.
Yeah.
So I'll just highlight this. And here, if you go down, can you see my, wait, I'll just start annotating here. So can you see this little ball here? So if I go down, it shows me it's 171 words in total. But if, yeah, and this is just this highlighted stuff. So if I click here, and there's the whole word count is 171. But if I just highlight this, and I see the word count is different. So it shows how many, if you just if you just press this, this will show you how many words are there in the document. So whatever you're writing, the word count comes over here, down here. Okay, I'll just give me a minute. I'll stop sharing this and I'll start sharing one other document with. I'll just start, I'll just to cover up everything so that I make sure that you've covered everything. Okay, so there are more people here. Okay, so this is just a little recap. So your first learning objective, as I mentioned, it's understanding. I'll start annotating this also. So it's understanding the policy context of healthcare services. So that's your first learning objective that I've given you on the Word document.
Yeah.
And these are all the policies that we talked about.
Yeah.
And then you're identifying legislation, policy guidelines impacting on healthcare delivery. So everything that you have, we've already covered it. And then you're describing key requirements on services. What are these? These are effectiveness, experience, safety. And this was for the first session that you had. And then coming to the second session, that up also, so that everything is clear. So, yeah. So this is the second session that we covered, where we were talking about understanding the requirements that are necessary for working as a healthcare professional. So as you remember, we talked about legislations, we talked about policies, we talked about 2 requirements necessary for a healthcare professional.
Yeah.
These ones. Okay, and then we compared and contrasted merits of each. So you have all the merits and contrasting over here. It has to be critical, a bit more critical, so that it's not just describing, it's a critical analysis. We talked about the 6 C's of healthcare.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then this was the importance of reflective practice of healthcare. They're different health reflective practices that you could do actually. So this is one of them, the Kolb's learning cycle that we talked about. We saw this video where reflection has been so important in healthcare. Gibbs reflective cycle. So there's one Kolb's reflective cycle, and then there's Gibbs. So you're describing what happened. You're feeling, you're describing your feelings. What were your feelings? I mean, what were you thinking about them? Your evaluation. So what was good and bad about the experience? What happened good? What happened bad during that situation? You analyze what sense can you make of the situation. You conclude what else could have been done in that situation, and then you plan your action. So if it happens again, what would you do then? What would you not do? What you did now, whatever you did now, how would you do it in a different way? So yeah, that's about it in a nutshell. Any questions? So you can use any other reflective accounts also, reflective measures also. It's up to you. One is there's Kolb's learning cycle. There's other learning cycles and of reflection as well. If you just Google it up, but just if it's
Is it on
yeah.
model?
Which one?
The one you just showed me now.
I'll just check with them. I'll have to check with them.
Anyway, if I can have the recording, will be very
I'll
good.
let you know. Yeah, no worries. Is that okay for now?
Yeah, I'm okay.
So yeah, if you have any questions while you're attempting your assignment, please feel free to email me, or just I'm more available on text. So if you text me and then just let me know that if you've submitted your documents. You don't need to let me know if you've got 2 weeks now to submit your assignment. So that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I hope that should be clear. Okay, thank you everyone for joining in. Just I'm sharing the screen once more for those who've just joined in. Just going through a briefly going through it. So you have this assignment brief that you have for a 2,000 word long. It's a 2,000 word long document. There are 2 learning objectives. In the first, you list 2 examples of any current legislation and or policy guidelines and briefly describe how these contribute to healthcare provision. This is your first learning objective. And the second is considering values necessary for healthcare practice. When you're considering those values, you're writing about them, and then you're describing how, this is the second part, how reflective practice contributes to the development of any healthcare professional. So these values, how do they, how reflective practice contributes towards your development. We've just talked about the Gibbs reflective cycle. So this is what we are expecting out of you. So you should be able to understand the policy context of healthcare services, in which I've talked about these assessment criteria in the PowerPoint presentation. And then you're understanding the requirements necessary for working as a healthcare professional again. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining in, and good luck to all of you.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.